Hey, and welcome back to That Trucking Gospel. It's our podcast that takes us through a thrilling ride through the dynamic world of transportation, and I'm your host, Chris Bynum.
Long horns on the hood, and I'm still gripping wood, still tipping, baby, sitting sideways. Texas heat on the candy paint, in and out of county lanes, baby, I love to swing. Find me posted on the corner with a couple cold Coronas and some outlaws out today. When we started, we were sober, baby, it ain't even over, they gon' have to drag us out this place. Yeah, it's different down here.
But today, we have a special guest for you and a really great treat for you listeners. A guest who's not just driving change to the industry, but also here to help us mold a new approach to working with shippers. Michael has been in the industry for over 25 years, and he has his master's degree focused on supply chain management. He is a high-energy guy that brings positive energy to a conversation and helps people achieve their goals, just like us here on That Trucking Gospel. He is always learning from his peers, and he also wants to give back. Hey, Michael, I'm glad to have you today, man. Welcome to the show. We're really looking forward to our conversation today. And just to get started, if you don't mind, how'd you even get in the trucking industry? When I look at your experience, man, it looks like you've been there and done that. Just give me a little history of who you are and how you got to where you are today.
Well, I tell you, it really starts back in the Midwest. I was looking to become an air conditioner refrigeration repairman, and I needed to go to school. I needed some money for school, and ended up at UPS where they paid for some school. And 23 years later, I found myself still in that industry. And so that kind of bounced me around to a couple different companies. But it all started with the need to pay for some schooling. And I really love the discipline that I got at UPS.
That's awesome. You know, say that, it's funny. That's my dad. That's what he did his whole life. Heating and air conditioning, refrigeration. So it's cool you see that. But similar with me, I actually got suckered into applying for a job back in college. It's not what I wanted to do, but man, if you're competitive and you the trucking industry is kind of where to be. It's kind of hard to get out when you get in. So, your time at UPS, when you look at your history there, you did a lot of things there. Like you did, started on the truck side, right? And then you kind of moved into that sales side. Can you speak a little bit to that?
Yeah, at UPS, it really, they'll give you additional opportunities and responsibilities. And that was scary, but you didn't have to be, the best in the role that you're in. You could actually pivot and say, hey, I'm great at people management. Your best salesperson isn't going to be your best sales manager. It's the way, how are you going to get a group of people together to achieve a common goal? And that's what UPS was best at doing is developing people, developing leaders. And that's where I got a lot of that routine, discipline down. And I was able to then apply it, not only to my business life, but to my personal life as well. I took a lot of those same type of little business professional things that I was learning and applying them to my everyday conversation, whether it was negotiating my cell phone bill or negotiating a contract with a client.
I can relate to that. You start negotiating anything for sure. So then after UPS, you moved into ArcBest doing a more of a sales role there as well. And then, now into, to AirPipe. So how did that experience at UPS and what you kind of learned, the way they do business translate into ArcBest and now into AirPipe and kind of what you do on a daily basis?
Well, what a great compliment and combination of two companies, UPS and ArcBest. At ArcBest, they taught me how to be customer obsessed. And what that did for me is I was able to take my business regimented routine, discipline of leadership that I got from UPS, combine it with really focusing on the customer experience and focusing on how to be really customer obsessed. And to the point that I love that combination so much, just like any carrier or provider would tell you, they have their core competencies. And what I found is that I was actually able to really make a larger impact with a company on the shipper side than I ever could as just a carrier and provider. And that really bugged me for a bit, that I felt like I was limiting the impact that I could have on the ecosystem of logistics as a whole. And that really started bringing and piquing my interest of how could I take a small or medium-sized company and really rev it up to where they could be a logistics stronghold and then really grow their business. And that's what brought me to AirPipe USA.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you took that carrier side, the way that mind works, to be customer obsessed, and now you're sitting on the customer side. So now you know what to expect. And then you've already used the term negotiations and working with carriers. You know what to expect and come out of that. So that's fantastic. And I know that there's a ton of value there. So kind of flipping from that carrier side with that customer obsession and now sitting on the desk you're sitting today, what type of challenges do you face, on the shipper side now, that compared to what you used to try to solve on the carrier side, compared to market and where we're sitting in today's world?
Absolutely. I mean, it was some time really that I was in a position to where I was not the subject matter expert. I was very comfortable in leadership roles, sales roles, people management, project management. You flip that around, and it was a scary endeavor for sure. I knew the capability was there. I knew that I could self-development quickly. I knew that I could fail fast. And I knew that I could put together a logistics program that really was more tailored to the needs of AirPipe USA. But some of the challenges that I ran into was certainly the concerns around double brokering. I got into the fact that AirPipe USA really needed to be doing more truckload than they were doing LTL. And they just didn't have that complete network of bandwidth to be able to evaluate, well, could we do logistics any differently? They just didn't have the time to optimize, right? And that's where I convinced them that, we really got to look at mode optimization and to understand that. And that brought on new challenges of, hey, when you're moving from one mode to another, that creates education that's needed up and down the entire organization. And so I started a kind of a newsletter on Fridays. I called it Freight Fridays. And I shared all things logistics, starting from basic 101 understanding of terminology, all the way up to where now I got some of our salespeople talking with their clients saying, hey, we've got to upgrade the way that the job sites are experiencing delivery of their product. And the way to do that is aligned with AirPipe USA and their logistics department, and they'll find the mode that aligns with the needs of your project timeline. And they're winning business that way because they're talking logistics from a sales perspective that I think was something that was never part of their sales process.
Yeah, and that goes back to that customer obsession you're talking about. You're now taking that as for a carrier, as a customer to your customer, being customer obsessed, making sure they get exactly what they need, right? Meeting their expectations and their needs, even though they didn't even know they needed it yet. The term of this is how we always do it. Well, hey, let's change it up a little bit. And then you had some buzzwords there that get me fired up, like mode, optimization, mode shifts, things that, as a carrier and as a broker that we lean on every day. So it's cool to hear how that transitions also from a carrier's customer to their customer as well, and help them be successful. So I guess with that, you already kind of answered it, but you're saying the customers and the sales team is now landing some more sales maybe, or having different conversations. So when it comes to meeting your customers' expectations from a carrier to carrier customer to your customer end user, how is those expectations going now? Are you seeing a rapid increase in customer satisfaction, especially from a mode optimization and or just speed to market and getting their product to them?
Yeah, it's a relative question. We just did a Survey Monkey, and one of the things that we identified is that we were looking at what our peer set of competitors were doing from a order life cycle, when the order comes in to the delivery. And we found that the area that we could impact the most to increase our competitive advantage was really on from the point that the order is picked to the point the order is received by the job site. We found that some of the network modes that we're using wasn't really meeting that expectation. And so we started evaluating how could we go to market with a plan, and that really ended up being in the truckload mode. It was a perfect time for the market. The market rate is comparable in a lot of areas around the country with our 3 different warehouses to be able to pivot and use the truckload environment. We sent out that survey and we asked them, what are your expectations of the number of days that it takes to receive your order? And now we know exactly what we need to focus on. We've listened to that perspective from the customer, and now we're driving to align that by improving that speed to market. And you're seeing it in results like this. We were at a trade show, and it was out in Chicago, and we had a conversation with the customer, and that sales contact pivoted the conversation to logistics. I was right there to able to pick it up, and the response from that customer was, I never really thought about logistics being part of the reason why I would choose AirPipe USA over another. But you've just proven to me that I need to be paying attention to speed to market and how you keep me on track with my project timelines. That helps the contractor, the distributors happy. The whole life cycle of that purchasing process is much more harmonious, and they're able to get the job done. That's going to create referral and repeat business.
That's a true success story. That is, that's fun to hear. Especially getting some ROI, those trade shows and a Survey Monkey. That's fantastic. Hey, let's take a quick break for a minute to say thank you to our sponsor, Unity Brokering, for this show today. Unity Brokering focuses on optimizing your supply chains, leveraging the relationships with their customers and their carriers. If you would like to get in contact with Unity, please email dispatch@unitybrokering.com. Let's get back to the show. So with that, kind of with that same, along that same conversations, what about the idea between using only asset-based companies compared to brokering companies, right? That asset light or your non-asset type business. Do y'all kind of lean on both? Do you lean towards broker? And then we'll kind of dive into maybe the why behind that.
Yeah, absolutely. So right now, we're in the infancy stage, at least in the introduction of a whole nother mode to a company. If you could just imagine, if you only use a knife and a fork your whole life, and someone put a spoon in front of you, you wouldn't know when to actually pick up the spoon. And that's kind of like right where we're at in the life cycle of understanding the multiple modes. Heck, I'm comparing air freight of moving cargo pipe from one side of the country to another, because it's comparable to some of the LTL prices of moving 20-foot long pipe. And so you've just got to open up your mind to where that sits. So when you start about the introduction of, hey, should it be, broker, should it be an asset? I think the answer is both. It's whoever meets the needs that we look for when we're looking for that right relationship and partnership with a broker that we use. And if it ends up being someone that we're working with that has a bunch of assets that are perfectly placed to where it helps us with our transfer, helps us with our drayage, helps us with speed to market to a large client from one regional warehouse to where that client is, that's who we're going to go with. That's going to make sense to meet, again, those expectations of the customer.
Because most of those LTL carriers, they don't want long freight. They want that squared off, perfect pallet, to better utilize that trailer. So in markets like this, you're right. How do we mode shift? How do you optimize that? Maybe you do a partial truckload, and it's crazy to me that you've said y'all have even looking into the air cargo. That shows you kind of that expertise you're bringing to the table, though. Like, hey, let's be open-minded here and look at all avenues as best for me today for this particular shipment. So with the idea of you saying both, right, asset and broker, how do you leverage those relationships do y'all make those choices in-house? Do you kind of leverage those relationships to say, hey, it's better to source this way today. It's better to source asset based on the service levels that I need. How do y'all kind of manage that? And I know you said you're kind of in the early stages of that, but how do you kind of manage that? And then just kind of how do you leverage that relationship? Because to me, what I'm hearing from you is it's the customer obsession idea could also go with that carrier and the relationship that you have to make sure that you're getting the right mode for that particular shipment in that particular lane.
It starts easy with one word: transparency. And that's why a lot of brokers like to work with me. They understand that I get the industry. I was them. I was a carrier. I was a broker. I know what they're going through. I know what their challenges are. And we're able to really dial into what I'm looking for. And I'm very transparent with that. I'm looking for some consistent, responsive communication. And I'm looking for them to understand what specifically my market is, what my needs are, and for the transparency of, are they capable? That not everyone has to be capable in every lane. That's okay. I understand that. So they don't have to go on trying to pretend that they could be every position out in the ball field. Just tell me the positions that you're really good at, and I know that you're going to perform really well there. So I treat them with the respect to where no email goes unanswered. If I've got a broker that are interested in soliciting in business, I'm going to listen to them, take them through the requirements to be able to be a broker for us, and treat them very respectfully, and so that they feel like, hey, all right, this is a responsive individual that is engaged to do business. They're very clear with their goals. And so I set out clear goals of what we want to do. They understand they're on a scorecard, and that there's consequences to not covering loads. There's consequences for bidding too low and putting themselves into a jam, putting the whole ecosystem of the order cycle into parallel, right? That's the type. And I teach that engagement at each broker, at each conversation. Every one of them are at different stages as we learn from each other. I understand their capabilities and they understand my expectations, and I'm very transparent with that. And then they know where they sit. Every night when they go to bed, they know exactly where they sit with the logistics department at AirPipe USA.
That's crazy you say that too. And this is a little selfish plug here, but at Unity Brokering, that is our motto, bringing transparency back to transportation, because that's something I learned as well too. Just tell me where you're at. I'll meet you where you're at. If this is not a good lane for you, that's okay. I rather just do good at what you do good at, So it's good to hear that us pushing our team to be transparent, and then you saying that back to us. That's exactly that customer obsession looks like. Is just know your role, be good at it, and then be transparent with me. That's fantastic. So with that, you've answered a little bit, but if you talk about just transparency and having that relationship with sometimes brokers, sometimes asset, is there any other factors that come into play there? Because let's be honest, I'm a big fan of the three-legged stool approach, right? You have to have three legs for a stool to stand up. You have to have service. You have to have price. You have to have communication. Whatever things you lean on, sometimes that helps make that decision too, right? Broker, asset. Is there other factors that you guys use, or how would you build your three-legged stool? Like what do you lean on when it comes to service, communication, transparency, price, speed, speed to market? What other factors do you use to make those decisions?
It shouldn't be surprising, but it's integrity, and that means that let's not get into a position where you're trying to, as a broker, say things to attract an audience. I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in integrity. If you say something, you mean it. That means the people that the brokers work with, they have to have that same goal. So in order for me to understand that, I ask a little bit about that broker-provider relationship and understand how they find the drivers that they work with. If they can't articulate a process of how they find drivers when I'm talking to a broker, how are they going to hold them accountable to integrity? How are they going to hold them accountable to transparency? They're not going to. And that's why I'm able to look into and understand what are they doing consistently, not what they have on a PDF file or on a piece of paper that they may send you, but what do they exhibit in their daily routine, in that interaction that triggers a high level of integrity. If you've got integrity, you could be wrong 50% of the time, but I'll still use you because you integrally told me I'm going to fail at this scenario. Now I can make a more informed decision for all the variables that are in front of me, whether it be the P&L of the company, whether it be meeting expectations of the client, anything that comes into that variable board, I can now be a better informed decision and make that on behalf of the constituents that I have, whether it be my clients or the company. I can't do that if the people that I work with lack integrity.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. And I tell you something that's crazy is, again, thinking about the broker side too, that integrity, tell me what you're good at. Technology can help change that too, right? Tell me exactly where the person's at, what's going on. That, those brokers that's leaning into technology, being able to tap into that driver, communicate more effectively, track and trace those shipments with whatever, program they're using to be transparent. And that's fantastic. I can't agree more. So kind of shifting the conversation a little bit to go back to that customer obsession idea that we were just talking about, being obsessed as a carrier. At the end of the day, the person that needs to be happy is your customer, right? The end user. So if we make sure that person's taken care of, everybody wins, right? So with the idea of expectations coming from that customer, have you seen a shift in the expectations and the speed to market and the way that service happens to your customers? I really believe that COVID and Amazon, the way that the business to consumer B2C has really changed how most people view what that expectation is, especially from the carrier side. Are you seeing that in your business as well, where the expectation of the customer has changed a little bit and they expect more, maybe faster or better service coming from, said asset or a broker?
Yeah, I can tell you that it is changing, and it's changing very rapidly. And it's going to be the companies that can pivot quickly to meet those expectations. So what are some of those expectations? If from a personal perspective, people are used to shopping carts. They're used to being able to go online, throw some items in a shopping cart, and Amazon maybe will have it there later today. I mean, it's that quick of a pivot that they want. Well, what does that mean for a project job site? What type of that? If it means that I've got to hold the job site over for a whole nother day, or I could have a part right away. Who are going to be the people out there, the companies like AirPipe USA, that's going to be able to pivot and quickly get the right parts at the right place at the right time, so that the project can be completed. And there's a lot of money that could be at stake there. You miss a deadline, you have to bring out installers a whole nother day, a whole nother week, a whole nother cycle. And that could be, super disruptive. So how do you be disruptive in our industry? Is that you take an industry that is traditionally not typically dealing with shopping carts. My industry is typically, hey, let me send in an email. Let me mail in a purchase order, and you stand it on its head, and then you say, hey, let's buy differently from each other. Let's share where my inventory is, how quickly it can get to you, so that way you can plan out that project life cycle, plan out the ability to meet the demands of the end user, of the job site that our distributors are working with. Well, if a distributor can look inside one supply chain and inside the inventory, then they have the comfort level that we're not going to be out of stock, that we're going to be able to support the job, we're going to be able to help them complete the job, and that they're going to come back to them, to those distributors with more opportunities to continue to build in the industry that we're in. That's what we want. That's the competitive advantage that we have, and that's what we're continuing to build on. And we've got some great enhancements coming to that in 2024.
Yeah, that's awesome. That leads right into my next question, is just kind of like that data analytical approach. That's the biggest thing in our industry right now, is just data, right? Like if we're going to have a conversation, I would say most providers are going to say, well, what type of data do you have? And what you just said makes me think of something as well, is that's kind of what you're giving to your customer as well. Let me provide you what our inventory levels are, so you can meet that expectation. Let me provide you what our lead time is, so you can meet that expectation. So it's funny to see how that translates from carrier to customer to end user and consumer, to where they're kind of asking for that same thing, even though they're just not coming to you and say, hey, I need more data. It's just saying, hey, I need more transparency as well. So that's awesome, because, when you think of data and you think about trying to source capacity and really provide a good service at a great price, how's that look for you right now? Do you guys leverage data? Do you push it hard? Is it something you're trying to move towards? Just kind of looking to see. Most people that I talk to right now still struggle capturing the data that most people are asking for. And I just wanted to see kind of where you guys are on that track.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's the age-old question that many companies face, and ourselves, we've pivoted from one repository of data to another recently because we needed to look at it differently. We wanted the ability not only to share it with other air pipes around the world, but we wanted to learn from the other air pipes. What are the way that they're doing things simply, whether it be from a logistics perspective, whether it be from a warehouse layout perspective, whether it be from an inventory perspective. Where are they sharing it? How is it helping them? And what's going to be the result of that sharing? Same thing with like sharing data within the broker or logistic network. Everyone wants to know, what's the lanes that you go to? Well, the lanes I went to last week will be different than the lanes I went to this week. You have to know what's going on in that market. If there's a particular job site, that job site for the industry that I'm in, it has a tight window that goes to that job site. Sure, that job site may be getting shipments of all different trades throughout the entire life cycle of the build of that building or the refurbishment of that building. But my little portion of that is going to be this tight little window of doing that. There may be another stage or another phase that comes back around, but I might be in a completely different area of that state or that city with a different job site. So it pivots so quickly that it's hard to say, hey, could we just have Joe's trucking go from point A to point B for the rest of his life? No, because that job's not going to be actively working for the rest of Joe's life, right? So it becomes much more difficult to nail down consistency. And that's why I've had to look at, could I just partner with one broker or one asset carrier? The answer is really no, because they all have their pros and cons. And so what I have found is I use a really good TMS platform to help me evaluate multiple brokers, multiple providers and carriers, and that helps put everyone into that same bucket. Now I can make a repeatable process. I can take multiple users within my company, plug them into that TMS, and have them do the same evaluation that I would do at the same high level that I would do it, without the need of the incremental understanding of why we're doing it. And I think that really helps us grow fast, that we're able to add multiple users and build the logistics department with the return on investment that we need to operate.
Yeah, and I think you just answered the question again of why you need to have an asset-based carrier to lean on, a broker to lean on, multiple asset-based carriers, multiple brokers, because what lane are you good at? Where are you good at? That's where I want to use you. I want to use you at your best, where we don't have to talk about the bad, right? So it's leveraging those relationships between asset-based carriers, brokers, or multiple providers to ensure at the end of the day, your customer's getting everything that they need to ensure that they come back and be a repeat customer. Same thing on the carrier side. So I think it's cool that you kind of answered that again, because I think for me, that is it. That's the key. Relationships, transparency. That's with the carriers, that's with the customers, that's with your dock work. Everybody on the same page. At the end of the day, everybody wins. So I kind of want to shift kind of back into just a little bit of your experience kind of to where you are now on the shipper side. Like if you were going to give advice to somebody that's just coming into our industry, more specifically a sales role that you've had in the past, with the seat that you're in now, what type of advice would you give somebody coming into our industry to say, this is what your focus needs to be on? This is how you can be successful. Because, right now it's a tough market. So people that's just now getting into our industry, it's a grind. So what type of advice would you give somebody just coming in?
Yeah, and I'm glad you asked that question. This could be a whole long a conversation just on this question alone, but I'll kind of break it up into a couple categories. I like to go back to, you talk about like, who's your customer, that question. And the answer is this: everyone you interact with is really your customer. I've got many internal customers. I also have external customers, right? And I think many times we could get really focused on one versus the other. So don't leave out the fact that logistics is really the glue that brings together the harmonious function of a company. And many times, the entrepreneurs, the visionaries, the creative minds that start a company, that's typically when it's small, as it's growing to that medium size. Those entrepreneurs, they're not thinking about how truly the logistics part of their company is the glue. They tend to become siloed at that point. It's truly logistics, the flow of that information, the goods, the funds, all that comes together, and that's how you've got to understand, where is accounts payable coming into the picture? How could I make their job easier? What is it that I'm doing that's making their job more difficult? Operations and warehousing, how they're picking. What is it that I'm doing that I'm asking them as I pivot, that I'm meeting the aligned needs of the end user, but I'm tremendously making some pressure onto the operations of the warehouse. You can't do it sitting in the office. You've got to get out and understand what are those different levels of understanding, competencies that they have within logistics. Do they understand why we're pivoting from one to the other? Don't make it annoying for them. Make it an embraced learning that they see when they pivot from one area to the other. They're like an ER doctor, and they're triaging a situation that's addressing the needs of the customer experience. So that brings me to that next category. Simply put, if you're new coming into this industry, you really want to be open-minded. It's great to have that passion, that confidence where you can influence the direction you go. But running around fast just looks good. It actually doesn't get the job done. So you've got to listen to all the departments that are coming together. Truly be that listening board of understanding what their challenges are from all internal. Because if you can't fix the harmonious of the internal part of your company ecosystem, you're never going to be able to address the needs of the end user. So you've got to get that harmonious working, that understanding. Maybe you've got to, assess and build the understanding of logistics itself within your organization. That's okay. Spend some time doing that. Start a newsletter, start an email, call it Freight Fridays or something like that, and send out just industry basic understanding. Get people talking the same language that you talk about every day. Then you can build upon that. Now, when there's a call to action, our customers are saying that we're not addressing this need. We can now all talk on that same level of understanding. So I think really that key point is listening to everyone within your company, understanding those challenges, and then being open-minded to fail fast. Let's try something. If it's not something that you've tried before, that's okay. Listen to that department, take that idea in, try it that way, see how it pivots throughout your organization, and then fail fast. If it's not something that's working, that's meeting that overall objective of the customer experience that you want, pull back, repivot, and then go another direction. Keep doing that, and you're going to learn that people are going to trust the fact that you're listening to them. You take their ideas seriously, you put them in action, and then we prove or disprove the return on investment of that idea. And we keep going fast. It's not a bad deal. You go to the next one, and that's going to help really increase your value to the organization. It's going to help with that overall relationship. And then the third category. Hey, what if I'm just a broker and I want to know what shippers need from me? I want to be the most successful broker that I could possibly be in the industry. What is it that I do? Well, this entire podcast actually lays out the groundwork for you to be successful. That you really want to be transparent. You want to be that person that can come in and that you have a high level of integrity, that you too are on the mission of being customer obsessed, and that you want to understand with that company that you're going to work with, what is it that their customers expect out of that customer experience. If you do those things, those three categories, when you come into any company in any role, whether you're the broker, whether you're the shipper and you're the new logistics person, you will have a much higher probability of success of bringing everyone together and then creating that order to life cycle sales product that is really going to give you the competitive advantage against anyone else that's working around you.
It's crazy how that translates, but show up to work, grind, get in lockstep with your teammates in all departments to make it flow, and then it kind of just works itself out. I mean, you're gonna be more what you're selling. You're gonna love what you're selling. You understand it better, that it's a great product and you're selling something that is of worth of value. So last little piece, Michael, is I think we've done a pretty good job of laying out the outline of a customer obsession, how it all works together, how you try to translate from the carrier to the customer to the end user. What about the struggling side of our industry? What about the kind of the negative side we're seeing right now? Like what struggles are you seeing? What challenges do you face on a daily basis right now in today's market?
Yeah. And really it's making sure I'm working with people that are honest in their transaction. Double brokering certainly is a challenge with that. And right now there are some opportunities in the market to curtail that. I know one of the TMS systems that I'm working with, they actually put the broker's name right on the bill of lading. And so I've got my warehouse staff working with folks, and this isn't a catch-all, but it will weed out. If a driver comes and they don't say the broker's name that's on our bill of lading, we turn them away. We find ways to help protect them. I see it as it's a partnership. Drivers are doing all the work, and there's some nefarious actors out there that are wanting to take all the profits. And we've got, the only way that works is that we've got to work together. And I've had to make some tough decisions where we've moved on from a relationship with a broker, a good broker, a broker that found great prices, great communication, hit all the check marks. They just weren't good at being able to determine whether they were working with a driver or a nefarious actor. And they had too many occurrences. And so we've had to move on from that. I think that it can't be done alone. You can't do it by yourself. That there's going to take some regulation. There's going to take a way to verify. And we've got to get there as a logistical network in the domestic U.S. and learn from other countries. What are they doing? How are they navigating to that? And you'll be surprised on how much it goes back to relationship building and understanding the drivers and their needs, and for the shippers to be concerned with that. We certainly have drivers where they do an excellent job. They're constantly in between two of our warehouses, and so when we transfer freight, we go right to that driver. There's nothing wrong with that. That driver's set up a great system to be able to transfer and payments and everything like that. But that's the thing that concerns me the most, is that if you make driving an unbearable occupation, you could cause less drivers, and that's not good. So we've got to come together and really find out ways that we can help curtail double brokering, help find ways that we can work with each other and weed out the nefarious actors and take action on them.
We've put a lot of time, effort, and money into that conversation, and it never stops, right? It's just something you have to continue to invest in because it protects you, protects your customer, and then obviously the end user as well. So, well, Michael, listen, this conversation today was awesome. I really appreciate you coming on to our show. My team here at That Trucking Gospel, these are the type of conversations we love to have, so we can learn from people like you. But before we get out of here, how can people get in contact with you? Do you mainly use LinkedIn? You got other social media platforms where they can potentially reach out to you and potentially lean on you for some of these questions?
Yeah, absolutely. And I encourage it. I do mentor people from all walks of life and that I've engaged them with, whether it be personally or in business. I truly believe that you've got your inner circle people that you kind of work with and that you may get some advice from, but it's humbling to be very vulnerable with that. I sit right outside that inner circle for a lot of folks, and they come to me to say, hey, this is the situation that I'm in, or this is a situation I'm about to get in. How would you navigate that discussion? And I could be a lot of help there. And I do give a lot of time to folks to help them navigate those career challenges, career situations, to just learn from each other. And I learn from them when I do that. LinkedIn is going to be the best way to set up those conversations. Then we can get into really carving out a piece of time. Maybe it's a cup of coffee. Maybe it's a virtual meeting. It just depends on where you're at. But I'm very giving in that time because I believe that it's the way people are going to grow, learn from the challenges, maybe their mistakes, maybe their really positive experiences. They want to have more of those positive experiences. Sharing those is really best. And I feel like that's the way you've got to give back to the logistical community, to the business management community, to people leadership community, is that you've got to be comfortable, being humble and vulnerable, reaching out, and then have people out there that are willing to give that insight and that time of what they've learned through their careers. So that's the way to reach out to me at LinkedIn. I'd be happy to do that with you folks, and certainly be a gift that keeps on giving throughout the year as we all learn together and we learn from each other.
So Michael, again, thank you so much for your time today. I look forward to more conversations with you, and I can't wait for the next one. So Michael, I appreciate you. We'll talk soon, man. Thank you for tuning in to That Trucking Gospel, where new episodes launch every single Tuesday. You can find us on all social media platforms. We'll see you next time.